you start adding toxic chemicals to the water.
Would you tell everybody what your credentials are first? Because some people here don't know.
I'm a retired U.S. EPA research biologist, 30 years of experience, international expert in toxicology, legal toxicology. That's about it. What
That's
happened?
all? I'm just a marvel.
I don't have a PhD, I don't have a Bachelor of Science, I don't have an Associate Arts degree, I have a 2-year GED, a college GED that I earned in the Air Force. I was educated at Cal State Long Beach, University of Central Missouri State University.
But you were the chairman of?
American Society for Testing Materials, 2 or 3 different testing, whatever. You know, that's old news. But what happened, I'm going to turn the story around to this map here. What happened is there was a meth lab dumped at Old Paw Creek, which is about river mile 20 in the Klamath River. And unfortunately, I don't know what all these things mean because I didn't put a note on my slide to see how old it is. But Old Paw Creek comes into the Klamath River approximately here, which is about 20 miles from the ocean. And what we'll see on the next slide, no, we won't. Okay, these are dead fish. Go to the next slide. Okay, I don't have my slides. What I wanted to show you is 97% of the dead fish were downstream of that X, and 3% of the fish that did not survive were upstream of that.
Just give him a shove.
My analysis of that is that when the toxins hit the river, those 3% that died just got a bit of it going through, enough to kill them, but not immediately. So they survived for a while before they died and moving upstream. But here's one of the examples. These are the Yurok Indians. The Yurok own about a few miles from the mouth of the river upstream, about a mile of each side. I don't know the distance upstream they own, but that's their tribal land. And so, you know, Bush kills salmon, legal rights first, you know, they're trying to put all this blame on who killed the salmon without any knowledge of what happened. There's been no science, there's been no testing, they went out and found dead
So
salmon.
who threw the meth lab in the river?
What?
Who threw the meth lab in the river?
We don't know. It's
Oh,
liquid, you know? So they didn't register. Okay. Foul play revealed in Klamath fish field. The decision that led to the death of 33,000 salmon in the Klamath River last year was made to help an Oregon Republican senator get reelected, according to the Wall Street Journal. Which is stuff that's just unbelievable. The largest fish kill in American history could have and should have been avoided if it were not for the political pressure put on scientists by administration officials looking for political gain, said Representative Mike Thomas. Democrat St. Helens is he's so far left he can only walk in circles. Outlining several meetings between Roe, Department of Interior head Gail Norton, Senator Gordon Smith, and top Bush cabinet members, the story said Roe drove a plan to make the farmers happy to help get Smith reelected. Water flows to the lower Klamath were not increased this year after the gates were opened for farmers in 2002, despite pleading by the Yurok tribe and its chairperson, Sue Masden. The tribe was given senior water rights by the government in a treaty. Further evidence of backroom finagling was outlined in the story, which said a biologist for National Marine Fisheries Service, Michael Kelly, recently asked for protection under federal whistleblower laws. That was pretty well discounted on my end. Kelly said he was subjected to political pressure to go along with the low water plan in order to ignore scientific evidence casting doubt on the plan, according to the story. Today's Wall Street Journal sheds further light on what we have known all along. Sound science was ignored in allowing dangers of the low water levels in the lower Klamath Basin. Thompson said yesterday. And as I go into this, you'll find out that these low water levels in the past 10 years, there were 3 levels of water lower than this. And they did not have a fish kill. Die on. Okay? So what did they do? The Euro Tribal Chairman Susan Maskey was addressing reporters in Washington, D.C. about the devastating impact of the fish kill on her people. And Thompson delivered dead Klamath River fish to Secretary Gail Norton. The lower river economy in this district was devastated by the fish kill, and it's really, really sad to see these dead fish. Now, this Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Association, these guys are not a fishing association. These guys are an environmental organization with this kind of a name. And they had a report, Klamath Fish Kill Report implicates low flows. None of these people were concerned about that. A final Department of Fish and Game analysis concluded low water flows were at the heart of 2002 tragedy and kill sizes possibly double the original estimate. So what do you think the environmentalists did? Immediately, there's not 33,000 dead fish anymore. There's now 67,000 dead fish. Commercial fishermen and conservationists today applaud the release of the California Department of Fish and Game final report on the causes of the tragedy. The exhaustive, peer-reviewed report's primary conclusion that low water flows resulting from upstream irrigation diversion were at the heart of the field is consistent with previous analysis conducted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Yurok tribes. The reason I keep reading all this stuff to you, very definitive, you've got all of these big organizations, but what I hope is we move through here to show you that the substance is incorrect. The Department of Fish and Game blamed the federal government for the death. Klamath River in September because it diverted too much water for farmers last year without leaving enough flow for the fish. A 63-page study released Friday concluded too many migrating fish crowded into a depleted river, allowing the spread of two naturally occurring parasites to destroy the gills of fish. The salmon still has subsequently died of asphyxiation, and it is true. They were finding Ichthyopteris and columnaris in these fish. The study also warned that unless the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation increases flows in coming years, there is a substantial risk for future fish kills in the Klamath River. The Bureau is the federal agency responsible for overseeing agricultural water diversion from the Klamath. Among the report's key findings are flow is the only controllable factor and tool available in the Klamath Basin to manage risk against future epizootic and major adult fish kills. Increased flow on the Klamath River should be implemented to improve water temperatures, increase volume, increase water velocity, improving fish capacities, provide migration cues, and decrease fish densities. And, I want you to think about that term, migration cues. We'll talk about that in a bit. USGS has revised the average September 2002 flows down to 1,870 cubic feet per second, which is accurate. It accurately represents the second lowest flow ever recorded. Dave Vogel, he's a retired Fed scientist with very good scientific credentials. And I loved it. He was shocked and astounded when he read the department's conclusion. Let me put it this way. If it is the cause, you certainly can't use Fish and Game's report to make a conclusion. Vogel said, adding that the most striking feature of the report is that the Department of Fish and Game is building a strong case for its lack of scientific objectivity. But you don't see all this at one time. Claudia and I did a lot of digging to bring all of these things together to try to paint this picture. So, if you see any one of these, it might make a lot of sense to you. Oh, yeah. So, they're trying to build a case, and I believe it's a very weak case, by trying to attack low flow releases from Iron Gate Dam, which is the lowest dam, most downstream dam on the Klamath River, without looking at all of the factors in a holistic fashion that is always necessary in scientific analysis. There was a lot of speculation and a lot of innuendo in the reports and a lot of technical information that Fish and Game did not include, said Vogel. Notably lacking from the report is an analysis of the water temperatures that were present in the upper Klamath River down to the Iron Gate Dam during the time of the fish kill. He explained, adding that the information was available. I did have water temperature thermographs in the upper Klamath River downstream of Iron Gate Dam, and I did examine the data, which clearly demonstrated that the water temperatures from Iron Gate Dam and the main stem of the upper Klamath were within lethal ranges of salmon. So what you have the Indians saying, we need more water. And Vogel is saying, hey, help yourself. It's hotter up here than what you have down there. And the fish are already stressed. So by releasing more water, getting greater water flow with warmer water is not going to be a benefit to the survival of that species. Lethal range, they emphasized, they were too high. So Fish and Game attempts to build an argument for increased flow below Iron Gate Dam during early September, but the problem with that is that even if the flow had been increased, the water temperatures were unsuitably warm for salmon in the upper river. In other words, the fish had no place to go. From another source, the farm acreage hasn't increased in 50 years. The farm acreage in the upper Klamath Basin has not increased in 50 years. The new water demands have been created by regulatory agencies seeking additional water for fish habitat and wildlife refuges. Consulting hydrologist Mark Van Camp of Sacramento told the water users analysis of the draft Bureau of Reclamation historic water flow study shows that downstream flows have increased 30% over discharges before settlement. We're talking settlement 1800s. That's apparently because irrigated lands use less water than evaporation loss from the thousands of acres of wetlands that existed before the shallow lake beds were diked, drained, and put to the plow. In 2001, both the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the National Marine Fisheries Service issued biological opinions under the Endangered Species Act that required higher water levels to protect endangered suckers and higher flows to protect threatened coho salmon. In an interim report released last year, the Research Council Committee found no substantial scientific support for the higher water level or flow requirements. The committee also noted, however, that lower minimum water levels in Klamath Lake proposed by the Bureau of Rec lacked scientific backing as well. I mean, this is pathetic. Finding of the committee suggested that maintaining water levels higher than that of the recent past is not likely to be effective in restoring sucker populations. Similarly, the committee found that the effect of higher minimum flows in the Klamath River on coho salmon is unlikely to lead to their recovery, although higher flows may benefit other species that are not endangered or threatened. A broader approach is needed to protect the fish and recovery in the salmon basin. Okay, the National Academy of Sciences says instead of focusing primarily on how water levels and flows affect endangered and threatened fish in Oregon's upper Klamath Lake and the Klamath River, federal agencies charged with protecting the fish should pay greater attention to other causes of harm, such as removal of migration obstacles, improvement of habitat, and reduction of summer water temperatures in tributaries. Tributaries is really critical because that is the major area where the salmonids will actually go to spawn. And the tributaries, because they're smaller, have the potential of having total tree cover, the foliage, to keep the solar radiation off of those waters, so they tend to be cooler, especially if they haven't been logged right down to the water, which is illegal now, you don't get much of it. Okay, so the continued emphasis on water levels in upper Klamath Lake and the Klamath main stem is too narrow a basis for recovery of suckers or salmon. The agency should develop expanded recovery plans that confront the root cause of the fish's decline. Before I go on, and they're talking about removing barriers, you know, they have this Klamath Basin restoration agreement, and to be in this group, you had to basically sign a contract saying that you approve of having the dams torn out before you can get on this group to have your say. Mm-hmm. And that group, heavily influenced by environmentalists, does not want the fish ladders installed on the dams, nor do they want the fish to be trucked around. They want the dams out. So all these years, you know, all this negotiation and fighting going on, They could have been testing the survivability of the salmon upstream of these dams. And they could not, they don't want the science to stand in the way of their ignorance. The biggest detriment to coho salmon is probably excessively high summer temperatures in tributary waters, the committee concluded. Lottie and I concluded the same. We went down for the new 49ers about this time, and we ran tests up and down Klamath River and tributaries, and we didn't even find a thermos line. We thought maybe we could run to the plant, we could get some cold water down below. We did not. It was just, there was no stratification whatsoever. To remedy this problem, cool water should be procured by purchasing, leasing, or trading for groundwater to establish lower summer temperatures in streams, and woody vegetation should be restored along the tributary to provide shade. I 100% agree with the vegetation issue. Agricultural, forestry, and road construction should be managed to prevent further degradation of tributary habitat in the lower basin end. Officials should consider root removement of Gwinnell and the Iron Gate dams, which block access to coho salmon in good habitat. Okay, and what do? You put a hatchery down there to replace the loss of habitat. They've done that. Competition with fish grown in hatcheries and released into the river could be a severe handicap for the recovery of coho salmon. The committee noted adding that hatcheries may need to close or alter their operations if adaptive management of hatcheries verified the current operations are harmful to coho. But all that is about is they are claiming that when the hatchery grown fish return, and if they will interbreed with the natural fish in rivers, then those fish become weaker genetically. So what they want to do is basically get rid of all the hatchery fish, tear out the genetic, and then hope that the increased habitat will make up the difference. The National Academy of Sciences Research Council Committee estimated that the research, monitoring, and remediation outlined in its report would cost $25 to $35 million over the next 5 years, and this excludes the cost of such a dam removal. That's going to be a huge cost. Now, fish which were once plentiful beyond any sense of potential depletion are now either threatened or near extinction. It will certainly be so in the near future unless a real examination of the situation and decisive acts replace the political and economic augmentation of the past few decades. The process of relicensing the Iron Gate Dam has itself led to a more intense focus by agencies, tribes, and environmental organizations of the effects of dam and dam decommissioning. This concerns the presence of Iron Gate and other dams as the Upper Klamath Basin has led many organizations to request information on dam removal. You can see all the agencies that are doing that. And up to this point, nothing has been mentioned about the water temperatures in the oceans and their impact on the survival and return of salmon. The Klamath Basin Coalition is an alliance of local, regional, and national environmental organizations dedicated to conserving, restoring, and biological resources of the West Great Klamath Basin. Well, look what we're up against. Lots of money, lots of well-intentioned, naive people tossing their dollars out there to stomp on the little guys like us, take away our rights based on ignorance and political preferences. About 30,000 migrating adult salmon were killed in the Klamath River in 2002 by two common pathogens that become lethal to fish under stress. They were definitely under stress. Most of the salmon killed were Chinook, which are not listed as endangered or threatened. Only about 1%, of 344 of them, were coho, which migrated later than Chinook. Studies by the California Department of Fish and Game and the Geological Survey showed that neither the river flows nor temperatures that occurred during the fish kill were unprecedented. And the committee agreed that neither flow nor temperature conditions alone can explain the fish kill. Now we're starting to see something here. Factors that might contribute to the decline, and here's your list: climate change, drought, ocean temperatures. In my mind, and I have another entire program that follows this up, the major influence right there, ocean temperatures, and I can document and show you that it is. And they get into these issues and everything is just focused on where it happened. It's not the big picture. Every single one of these, the Fish and Wildlife is narrow on what they did, and the state fishing game is narrow on what they did. The pathologist is narrow on what he did. It's just the way it is. Okay. The approximate cause of death was TB infection. Did I go back?
No.
Okay. The high density of fish, low discharges, warm water temperatures, and possible extended residence time of salmon created optimal conditions for parasite proliferation and precipitated an epizootic of ick and coloniaria. Based on a review of available literature and historical records, this was the largest known free-spawning adult salmon die-off recorded in the Klamath River and possibly the Pacific coast. Press release from water users. A study shows Klamath River temperatures, not Klamath project operations, which is the farmers, are likely reasons for the die-off. It appears that large numbers of salmon entered the lower river earlier than usual. Were exposed to too dramatic and uncharacteristic cooling and warming conditions that were chronically and cumulatively stressful to fish. What would cause cooling and warming in the river? At the same time, riverine conditions in the upper Klamath were unsuitably warm for the salmon because the normal seasonal cooling trend had not yet occurred. These data indicate that September 2002 was unique, but not for the reasons portrayed by the California Department of Fish and Game. Until additional data is acquired on the topic, Dave Vogel's opinion is that the combination of those factors is probably the most plausible reason of the fish die-off. And Dave at this time still didn't know about the meth lab one. They went on, in my opinion, the best available scientific data and information indicate that the continued operation and maintenance of historical flows at Iron Gate Dam will not jeopardize coho salmon. Furthermore, in my opinion, the operations of Iron Gate Dam during the summer and fall of 2002 did not cause and could not have prevented the fish die-off in the lower Klamath River. Gill rot symptoms. Initially, there are no symptoms because the disease is out of the sight behind the gill covers. But once some damage has been done to the gills, the fish will begin to gasp at the surface in an effort to maintain their oxygen supply to the body. The fish will also become increasingly larger due to the lack of oxygen. If the fish is caught and examined the gill, gently lifting the gill cover, the gills should be nice and healthy red color when the fish is in full health. If the gills are discolored, damaged, or look abnormal in years, then gill rot is the probable cause. The cause of gill rot does not explain the blisters and boils covering the fish bodies. Where did that come from? Now we have blisters and boils on the fish's body. It came from Harold Tripp, traditional fisherman, cultural technician at Karuk Department of Natural Resources. This came out, not a scientific paper, but if you look down here, a white paper on behalf of the Crook tribe of California. It was kind of like an archaeological, anthropological paper. They were interviewing this guy. We found this and thought, holy cow, look at this. What the heck is going to burn the skins of fish? We're not in boiling water. So he says, last year all the fish were sick. I could tell because they were bleeding. Every time they hit the net, they would be bleeding before you clubbed them. And after the river came up, about 10 days later, the fish got better. So I think that if they wouldn't have released the water, I think a lot more than 30,000 fish would have wound up dying. They had some kind of big boils on them, and some of them had blisters. 10 days later, you've all heard that the solution to pollution is pollution. The river kept on running. The meth lab had only so much stuff to be washed out of After 7 days, the fish kill manifested, soon after 7 days, the fish kill manifested itself. Claims were made that the toxic substances may have been the cause. Water samples were collected from 5 locations to determine if any toxic substances were present at concentrations toxic to fish. The scans tested for a broad spectrum of organic compounds, including organic chlorine pesticide, triazine pesticide, polychlorinated biphenyls, and glyphosate, which is Roundup. So what are they looking for? They're looking for the impact from farmers, ranchers, or possibly loggers. They even went out and they took a fish sample, a single dead coho carcass, and they did a chemical analysis on the gills. The analysis of gills, because it is an active site of contaminant uptake, was excised by the Fish and Game for tissue analysis. This analysis of one fish tissue did not detect any contaminants. These analyses, all based on a fish collected later during the fish die-off, 15 days later, support the findings of no persistent toxic pesticide, herbicide, or PCB congener in the water at the time of the die-off. I would agree with that.
Wow, all one fish.
Yeah, but what they analyzed for probably wasn't there because that's not what caused the problem.
But that's all they look for though, right?
That's all they look for.
So Fish and Game and the Wildlife Service each separately concluded that toxic substances could not have caused the fish kill. In reality, there's no way in the world either agency could reach that conclusion when the water samples were taken by Cal Fish and Game a full week after the fish kill was underway, and Fish and Wildlife collected their one fish 15 days after the kill was underway. You need to get in here within 24 hours. When you hear there's a problem, you need to be sampling. Most significantly, neither agency analyzed for chemicals that might be found in the meth lab dump. An analysis of the wrong classes of chemicals is equivalent to no analysis at all, and the analytical test results do not allow for a conclusion that toxic substances could not have caused the fish kill. Why do you suppose chemical analysis of the gill tissue did not detect any contaminants? Well, over here, we have the analysis of what they analyzed for, and over here we have what you might find in the meth lab. And they didn't look for any of this stuff, which is really kind of unusual in the sense that, you know, they have drug problems all over, marijuana plantations and the whole works. And they just went right after farming, agriculture, logging. This is the slide I was trying to show you that I was hoping was after the first one. What I'm trying to show you here again, we have Opaw Creek. And what you'll notice is there's like reach 1, reach 2, reach 3, reach 4. And then if you come over here, this table summarizes fish counts and estimated numbers of dead from surveys assessed in September. And on the 20th, at reach 1, they found 26% of the fish dead, 2, 43, 3, 27, and 4 is 2.7. 4 is up here, and 3 is here. And then they found that the greater depth, you know, after the water's flowing downstream. So now, 4 days later, they have 55% dead here, 25 here, 16 here, and then 3. And those are 2.7, 3, 2.6. These are all the guys upstream of Opaw Creek. And then you have 60, 28, 8.5, and you know, it's slow. Basically, I think these data in themselves show you that there's a slug of toxic chemical moving down the river and washing itself out into the ocean, which is exactly what you would expect, and I don't know why the scientists would miss this. But it's easier for me to go back, by the way, and gather all this after it's all out there, running in all fairness. I just added this for this Many law enforcement officers confirm massive environmental damage has occurred at marijuana growing locations, including on the Shasta River. Detective Mark Merrill of Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department explained that marijuana growers use such compounds as rat poison, insecticides, and pesticides to kill unwanted animals that penetrate their operation. Shasta County Sergeant Tim McDonald and numerous other law enforcement officials confirmed Merrill's statement, all emphasizing that the chemicals end up in creeks and watersheds, which ultimately end up in rivers such as the Klamath. In addition, there are months of human waste, paper, food cans, propane canisters, food wrappers, as well as other forms of garbage that are found strewn about. So, summary of the fish die-off facts. Water levels in the Klamath in 2002 were higher than water levels during 3 of the last 10 years. There were no significant die-offs of salmon in those years when water levels were lower than they were earlier last fall, suggesting that other factors than flows may be responsible for the disease that killed the fish. The number of returning salmon at Iron Gate Hatchery on the Klamath River in 2002 was the 3rd highest since the records have been taken. So they had 100,000 healthy fish returned to upstream hatcheries and spawning areas, in addition to the 33,000 that died.
67,000.
667,000 died. The Klamath Project represents 2% of the entire Klamath River watershed. Project releases from Iron Gate Dam represent just one of over 100 downstream tributaries to the Klamath River main stem. The fish kill occurred 200 miles from the Klamath Basin. There is simply no scientific or other evidence to suggest that increased warm water flows in the Klamath at the time of the fish kill would have provided any benefit to the salmon fisheries. Most of the fish killed were Trinity River Chinook salmon. One final point that continues to be overlooked is that the Hupa tribe requested increased water flows for their canoe ceremony. How do you think migrating salmon will respond to a freshet of water flowing out of the mouth of the Klamath River? They will begin their migration upstream. Then the ceremony ends and the water flows drop back to earlier levels. The false signal sent to the salmon of higher water flows resulted in their entrapment in the shallower warm river system, and then a toxin was added. American farmers, ranchers, miners, and property rights advocates are forever continuing to fight for their very existence, the impact on their families, their way of life, and the lifestyle they wish to share, and ultimately leave to future generations as more than one common enemy. Most believe it is environmentalism, but without liberal left-wing media, where would these radical earth worshippers be? They have no morals, no integrity, and they don't care about us. That concludes the presentation.
Any questions?
How many birds have you